Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is the Piracy Show. Of course, questions, comments, concerns from last week's ship updates. So let's get started. First one, Demiv Psychochild. I really hope those are folded up wingtips, otherwise it will look stupid as shit. Yeah, no, that's of course in reference to the Eclipse artwork that we saw. I really do think that those are folded up wings for storage, because I agree those two vertical stabilizers would look completely foolish. I'm guessing that in the final form what we're going to see is something that looks not too different from a B2 Spirit. Obviously, you know, not exactly like it, but something along those lines. You know, probably like a stealth heavy fighter, because, you know, it occurred to me afterwards is that Eclipse was a name that they had actually used before. Originally when, you know, in, what was it, a Jump Point article, when they first released the Vanguard, they listed 4 variants to the Vanguard, and one of them was the Eclipse. The Eclipse, a possible, at the time, because there wasn't a, oh geez, which one is that one now? The Vanguard Hoplite, which is the one that drops troops. Before that was ever announced or ever even a thing, there was the 4th model was going to be called the Vanguard Eclipse, and that was supposedly going to be a stealth model of the Vanguard. Alright, next up, Citizen Gamer. The first thing I am going to do in my Reclaimer is throw my co-host Lightning Dragon in the grinders. Should be fun. That's a little dark. Oh man. All right, next, Megatron, space superiority, wings, stabilizer fins, lol what? The developers know this is the space is a vacuum, right? I get that lots of ships in this game have wings for going planet side, but the very specific role of a space superiority ship would be the exact archetype of a ship that does not give one fuck about being aerodynamic. Well, like, that's actually a point that's been kind of raised on the forums before. There was a time when a lot of people were saying, you know, why do ships have wings at all? The Saber was one of those ships that people were very unhappy about. They were like, oh, you know, why does it have wings? Get rid of the wings. And then, you know, we saw atmospheric flight, and then the wings kind of made sense. But I think overall, like a space superiority fighter, I mean, you're not going to kind of build, you know, one ship that can only do one thing and then another ship that can do another thing, you know, atmospherics, when you could probably, you know, save money and save, you know, probably a heck of a logistical train in just building something that could transit in both environments. And so that's why I think fighters have wings, is it's just, you know, kind of a one-size-fits-all solution in terms of aerodynamics and atmospheric flight. And plus, you know, even if you're just launching from a planet or landing on a planet, aerodynamics, you know, a ship that's aerodynamically sound still confers certain advantages on you, because if you're not having to fight a very poor unaerodynamic shape, then that kind of saves energy that could better be used for shields, for weapons, things like that, instead of using it on control thrusters to try to maintain lift on a ship that otherwise would, you know, drop like a rock. So there are logical reasons for why they have wings, unless CIG were to go to a, you know, a split model where it's these are atmospherics, these are planetaries, then having a little bit of both on a ship does kind of make sense. All right, next up, Jay. I hope Spectrum gives us a cool way to advertise for and hire a crew, other than just going or just join a corp. It would be cool if there was some kind of employment app that we could use to get our characters a job on something like the Reclaimer. Perhaps our characters could also have ratings so captains could rate players on their work reliability, etc. Well, actually, there's already a website for that. It's called Starship Crew Connector. It's, I guess, the very first iteration of, and it's you know, basically someone exploring this. Now, it's obviously it's not a finished tool. I think possibly there might be some kind of link within the verse, but it should be a fairly reliable tool. I think that you're going to see more along those lines, possibly someone developing an app for, like a mobile device, so you can just kind of handle some of your business while you're out in the world. So when you get home, you've already got a crew and you're already all linked up and ready to go once you're ready to sit down and play some Star Citizen. But yeah, there already are like people who are evolving these services independent of CIG, so I'm sure there's going to be something. All right, moving on. Harbinger 8. Thanks. You're welcome, dude. Rich King. Hey, Minion. I really like the channel. Never miss an episode. Love your no-nonsense and upfront views and reviews of the game I love. Nice to see someone not sugarcoat everything and tell it like it is. Wait, one sec. There's more here. I gotta kind of expand this one. This game is going to be amazing when it's complete, but that's a long way away, and I feel it's important as you are a content creator that you keep faith and help us too as well. It's a very long road ahead with a lot of bumps and delays and obstacles. I hope you will keep us excited about what's coming and what's already here. Thanks again and keep the faith, bro. Question: how long do you really think Star Citizen is going to take to get to beta, Squadron 42 and beyond? It will be long. I think it will be longer than 5 years, maybe more. I have never wanted to be more wrong. So if I am, it's a win-win. 3.0 is probably going to be delayed, and that's only 3 moons, not any planets. And if they still have one complete system with how many planets and moons, there are supposed to be 10 or more systems when Squadron 42 comes out. I know 3.0 is going to be a huge patch, and there's going to be a shit ton in it. That's just it. All the patches from this point on are going to be just that big, if not bigger. Not trying to be negative, just trying to understand and accept the real timetable. Wow. Okay. As far as how long do I think Star Citizen is going to take to get to beta? Really, and it's something that I've said many times, is the real test here is Squadron 42 and getting Squadron 42 out the door and out of the way. Once that's all done, I think that we're going to see things accelerate. I think that, as you can see, like the new ship timetable, there's a whole bunch new ships on there. There's a whole bunch of things that we're seeing, and I think that's a reflection of the ships in Squadron 42 being more or less complete and out of the way, and so now the real work can begin on the ships that we all want to play in. And so we're seeing that acceleration in terms of the ship development pipeline. Now, in terms of the overall, getting to beta, if Squadron 42 makes it out this year, and I put a big if on that, we're probably, by the time we have a full Squadron 42 out, we're probably going to be about a year to 2 years away from beta. Because once again, remember, beta is full featured, and now it's just about testing, balancing, refining, and enhancing the performance of the game. And so that's, 2 years I think would be a stretch for beta, but I think that that's where we're all going to end up being. I think we're going to probably be about a year after the release of Squadron 42 at the earliest that we would be in beta. Before that, I think we're just going to grow in little-ish increments. A moon here, a planet here, a space station here, and so on and so forth, until the system gets fully fleshed out. And then we're looking at, 4.0, which was supposed to be, I believe, if that is still the schedule that they're holding to, 4.0 was going to be at the first point where we actually jump to another system. And that's when things will accelerate. But once Squadron 42 is out of the way and off the docket, more or less, I think that's when things are going to accelerate on Star Citizen. I don't see them starting the chapter 2 of Squadron 42 anytime soon after that, because I think the main focus is going to be on filling out the Star Citizen universe and getting that out the door. All right, next up, BarNigra. The sale of the Aegis Eclipse comes with the introduction of a $5 CCU tax. I didn't see that one coming, pun intended. Apparently, CIG can't handle 1.1 million database records. I know. Does anyone know a DBA who fancies a trip to Los Angeles to fix the database design issue? I'm sure CIG would pay expenses. It should only take a week to resolve. That has been a bit of a hot topic over the weekend, and when I started reading it, I kind of looked at it and went, oh God, why are they doing this? I don't know the full behind the scenes picture of what the finances are like for Star Citizen. So, some people have suggested that the $5 tax is a way to to raise money because things are they're desperately short. Oh, they're running out of money. They could run out this year, blah, blah, blah. I don't think so. I think that it's probably like a mitigation of expenses more than anything else because, $5 is $5. The problem I have with them looking at, hitting up all these, $0 CCUs and these $5 CCU taxes and all that, a lot of people keep these CCUs because they're trying to keep their options open. They want to see what succeeds and what fails, and quite sensibly so. I could see CIG kind of looking at, kind of trimming things down the line, but I just don't think that we're really at the point where it's fair. And I think they were saying something along the lines of, for balance reasons, they like to look at what ships people own. And I think more or less to kind of set a priority. If a lot of people own a Super Hornet, then we have to, treat the Super Hornet a certain way, or maybe take a look at the Super Hornet and see why so many people want it. Which it's one of those things that as a person on the other side of the fence, and I'm sure a lot of people know the same or have the same feeling or have had it before, is I hate when game developers talk like that. Oh, let's see what people are using most, and then we know what the problem is, or what we need to focus on. And generally, the reason why people are the most successful, or people are using one thing over another the most, is because it's generally the better solution. It's generally it's generally a design success. When a lot of people gravitate to something, it says this is really good, and so this is maybe a pattern that you should build on, or an idea that you should explore further, or maybe some ideas that you can incorporate into different things. But when I hear game developers talking like that, it's like they're singling something out for a nerf, which generally tends to be the way things are. When something is really successful in any games, developers tend to nerf that one thing rather than boost the other things, or take a look at the other things, because it's just like, oh well, this is the easy solution, let's just do this. So I'm gonna hold off on really diving into that, and I bet you there's probably a few people who thought I was gonna dive in on that right away on this show. I'm going to hold off. I'm gonna take a wait and see approach on this one. The $5 CCU tax, I'm not a fan, but I want to wait and see how this one develops a little bit. Just I want to see what they do with it, really. We'll see what happens with this CCU tax. I don't think it's... my gut reaction is I feel that it's a little too soon for something like this. Ships need to develop out a little bit more, and people are just basically keeping their options open. I think pressing people a little too hard at this time is probably not the best idea. Okay, Frasier 96. Cockpit outline looks a bit like the Gladius in this photo. Yeah, it does. You can definitely see the Aegis pedigree in the outline and in the general shape of the ship. And I guess that's more like a nod to the artists, that even like underneath a tarp you can tell what manufacturer it is. And certainly like the artists are definitely very skilled. I know some people think that when I talk about a ship in a negative way that I'm being cruel to the artists, but I think that in terms of artistic achievement, in terms of skill in making these ships, like CIG, bar none, in terms of artistic skill, they always knock it out of the park. Everything looks like it should look, and everything is fairly reasonable. Now, of course, aesthetics are individual. They're not universal. So what you might like the way one ship looks, another guy says, "Ugh, it's disgusting." But overall, like the artistic and technical skill in putting the ships together is always evident in every ship that they make, in every asset that they make for the game. It's just, sometimes I think that there needs to be also a bit of engineering point of view in the creation of ships, and not just so much attention paid to just making a beautiful object, and also maybe concentrating as well on making something that's functional and inherently balanced. All right, next up, Edison Trent. Question: where do you get the UEEN Space Superiority Fighter from, since I do not see CIG mention it anywhere? If so, please send me a link. I do not suppose it's to be UEEN Space Superiority, but then can a bomber, missile platform, and infiltration, since ship superiority or space superiority is such a broad term? Sorry, there was some minor issues there, but it comes from the weekly newsletter that they send out every Friday. That hit me right before I produced the episode, and it kind of changed the whole nature of the episode. But yeah, there was a weekly newsletter, and I believe it's going at what is it, $250, $275. I have to go back and double check that, but yeah, my personal opinion is that we're probably going to end up with something size-wise, possibly Vanguard-esque in size, like a heavy fighter. But once again, I guess we'll have to wait and see. All right, next up, Glass. Short and sweet ship updates this week at $275. There you go, $275. This ship could be a tier above other combat ships if it is one. Although an expensive price tag doesn't always mean good results. I'm looking at you, Vanguard. I love all the teasing and secrecy behind the Eclipse. Hopefully they will give us plenty of juicy lore to read on the 19th. Yeah, that's generally a given, that they give us a whole bunch of write-up and a whole bunch of tease before we finally get the ship. I mean, in the past it was like the help the Herald, retweet this 1,000 times and we'll reveal the image early type thing. I bet you Ben Lesnick is furiously typing away, coming up with like the legends and the lore behind the ship. So hopefully we'll get something really, really good. At that price tag though, where it's sitting, it to me, it does raise a couple of questions as, okay, so we have kind of like a big gunship at $250 that has not seen the light of day since it was sold, or, well, technically it's always being sold, which is the Redeemer. The Vanguard has, gone, certainly seen its trials and tribulations and is probably not yet done, at least, in my perspective. If I was there at CIG, I would be out on the forums sourcing opinions on how to fix the Vanguard. But if this is something along the lines, I mean, of the Vanguard, where could it fit in more interestingly? Because you already have, the Vanguard Hoplite, which can land troops. You have the Redeemer, sort of, that can land troops and do boarding, and they're both, these long range, or, well, actually, the Vanguard is the long range one. These kind of heavy fighter designs, even though technically the Redeemer is called a gunship, but, at this point, I think that argument is more semantics, and we have to wait till we see the Redeemer before we can really make that judgment. But where would this fit in? At that price point, I do think it's going to be up there in the gunship heavy fighter size. As to what capabilities it could have, I mean, I guess an argument could be made that it could be an infiltration ship, you know, able to drop you or drop a few guys down on a planet stealthily. But the Prowler is already there, but not necessarily, you know, just because they have the Prowler doesn't mean that, you know, the UEE wouldn't use their own solution possibly to get troops on the ground. So, I mean, I guess an argument could be seen either way for what this is going to be. I kind of, you know what I would like to see, honestly, because it's one thing that the Prowler doesn't do, if it is kind of like a stealthy ship and, you know, an infiltration ship, is carrying a ground vehicle like this Dragonfly that we're seeing in the video here. If you carry like a ground vehicle in that, I think that would be pretty cool. A stealth ship that could deploy like even a small ground vehicle like the like a Dragonfly or some other space bike, maybe two of them. I think that would be really cool. That would be something I'd definitely be interested in. And, you know, another thing in the outline that I noticed is you don't really see any turrets in that ship, so it might be a one-person kind of, I don't know. It could be like a one-person infiltration ship that allows you to carry a little cargo, maybe a ground vehicle, some of the things that the Prowler can't do. That could be very interesting. That would be something that would definitely catch my eye and make me go, huh, you know, let's see. I might roll the dice on something like that. All right, Rambus. Avenger is the Penguin, Eclipse is the Stingray. Yeah, you know, that kind of flattened out shape does look certainly very cool. If it is indeed flattened out, once again, please let those vertical fins just be wings that are folded up. Please, please, please. All right, Jez MCM. You know, if there's one thing that worries me the most about this game is that comment at 755. So, okay, so that was my comment where I was talking about being a little bit bored with the Super Hornet. I have witnessed a few people that decided to upgrade due to that very reason, and yet I believe every ship in the game hasn't reached its full potential, or at least I hope they haven't. What are your thoughts? Yeah, see, that's the thing, and I mean, it goes back to the whole CCU thing a little bit, is a lot of people keep CCUs to keep their options open, you know? And I think CIG realizes that and probably sees a potential to maybe, I would say, mitigate some expenses off of the $5 CCU tax. But getting back to people, you know, getting bored with ships and, you know, not being able to really judge them. And I think, you know, that's just it, is that we really have no basis for judgment because we're still in alpha and we don't know what the full potential of things are going to be. But I would say that the Hornets are fairly close to what they're going to be in the final universe in terms of their overall placement, in terms of, like, you know, who is the most maneuverable, who has the most firepower. I think that the Hornet is kind of stable in that position, but you know, I always keep my eye out for something that, you know, but the Hornet is more, yeah, it's more of a generalist, and I always kind of keep an eye out for something that might be advantageous to a certain tactic or a certain doctrine or something that would benefit me specifically. And certainly, you know, I've always been very enthusiastic about anything that's stealth related, because, you know, in a free-for-all universe like Star Citizen, one of your best defenses that you could possibly have is to not be seen until you want to be seen. And there's also a very intense gameplay to being stealthy and to sneaking around that I think frankly goes underappreciated. And I mean, it's like games like Metal Gear and stuff like that, certainly. You know, I always enjoyed games that involve sneaking around and having to do stuff. I used to love, with my Rogue, sneaking into Stormwind and killing the auctioneers. Yeah, that was me. I was one of those guys back in the day. So, yeah, hopefully we'll see something really cool out of this ship. something new and original. But if not, I mean, the Super Hornet, it's still a good ship, but it's a ship that I've flown so many times. All right, Grumble Pants, liking the shorter episodes. This was a good one. You know, there's there's arguments both ways. I've had people come after me and say, "Oh my God, why aren't you making, like, you should make these episodes longer? You know, why aren't they longer?" And I'm like, I'm limited by the information I have, and I mean, trying to draw things out, I think, doesn't really help. So I mean, there's people on both sides of that fence, but you know, I just try to work with what I got every week. Some weeks are short, some weeks are longer. Hopefully when they're longer, it's because it's jam-packed with really cool shit that's coming out. And, you know, but sometimes the only thing you get is like a little image of a Cutlass Black on Twitter from Sandy Gardner, and you're like, oh my God, please let Happy Hour have something good on about ships, because otherwise I am screwed. All right, next one, Tropic Thunder. Hope the Reclaimer is not just a big floating grind room. Lots of valuable weapons and ship components are more valuable intact rather than grinded up for basic elements. This thing has to have a disassembly room to collect rare weapons and such to really hit it out of the park. It actually does have that. One of the problems that arose in the initial sale of the Reclaimer is the Reclaimer was advertised as having the most cargo, it was basically the biggest cargo ship in the game, because this was before the Hull series came along, because it had this immense cargo space in it, you know, more or less, I guess, in the tail of it. And so people were really confused by that, you know, and they were saying, like, so it had like something like 20,000 cargo space, or 23,000 or something like that, and it was something like astronomical, and people were like, oh my God, so the best cargo ship is also a salvage ship? And then CIG clarified that a lot of that large cargo space was actually purpose-built for storing the scrap metal and the things that are all torn up by the grinder, and then stored, you know, compacted and stored in there. But there was still, I think in the old system, it was 3,000 CCUs worth of space. So obviously in the new system, it will be different, and it will be a much smaller number. So don't take that one to the bank, but it was still a fairly sizable cargo area for the storage of ship equipment. I think under the old system, it was still the equivalent of the Caterpillar in cargo storage capacity, even with the scrap metal removed. Now, of course, things adjust, things change. The Caterpillar obviously got bigger, but yeah, it's going to have a decent amount of cargo capacity for just regular stuff that you cut out of the ship. And it also comes with a, you know, it's often forgotten, is it also comes with its own little, you know, kind of like little mini ship, what are we calling them again? It's not a snub fighter. What would you call it? A launch, I guess, would be the most appropriate term. But it's a it's called the Cutter, and it's this little I guess we'll call it a launch that you can kind of navigate around the ship and use it to locate valuable pieces of cargo along with the drones, and, you know, kind of cut them out. So it does come with its own mini snub fighter-esque thing, except it's not a fighter, it's more of a launch. So there's a lot of really cool shit going on with the Reclaimer. It's one of the reasons why I've been so pro Reclaimer for such a long time. All right, next comment, Gareth, ha 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 ha. Is it a fighter? Or is it just says UEE space superiority or space superiority. It does not say fighter. Even like just now I was saying it, I was just about to say fighter automatically. I think it's going to be more EWAR or a bomber, like a B2. I think it's definitely going to be B2 shaped, but space superiority generally, you know, like as I was saying before, and like the next word out of your mouth is almost automatically fighter, because that's generally what you're talking about when you say space superiority, air superiority. To me, it seems like it's going to be I mean, if it's a bomber, that's definitely something interesting. But just space superiority, to me, it just kind of refers to something that's at the top of the food chain, which is generally like a fighter in certain respects. So I'm kind of like, my gut reaction is it's a fighter, but I could be wrong. I mean, a bomber would be a cool idea, definitely. E-war ship definitely would be stealth and E-war all in one package. That would be something very interesting to me, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, next up, Istvan 56. There are all those shots of the Prospector and some of the Razor damage states revealed to an ATV. Yeah, I kind of left those out. I guess the Prospector, you know, that's my mistake. I should have put that stuff in, but generally, I'm always kind of working against a time constraint, which is when I schedule to make these episodes. I mean, like, Friday really isn't a choice because it's the only day when you get all this stuff together from Thursday, from ATV and everything, so it just makes logical sense. But sometimes I'm kind of, you know, things pop out of my head when I'm trying to get things done and kind of get the weekend started. And, you know, Mondays are always, you know, difficult for obvious reasons to get this done. But, yeah, sometimes I miss things, or sometimes I forget to put things in. But, yeah, that was there, and I did miss it on the episode. Sorry. All right, Mangle. I'm getting really tired of all the new, same old ships. There are really tons of fighters. This is just becoming a virtual cash grab. Well, there are like a ton of fighters in the Star Citizen universe, and a lot of things that need to be kind of fleshed out in terms of fighters before I think any more come in. My hope is that this is going to be something bigger than a fighter, something more along the lines of a more full-featured personal transport than just strictly speaking a fighter. You know, I talked about it earlier in the episode where I was hoping that, you know, maybe if you can deploy a ground vehicle from it or something like that. I have different hopes for this ship than just strictly being a fighter. You know, like there was a guy talking about, you know, having E-War or a stealth bomber. I have higher hopes for this ship than just another fighter. Because I feel that the fighter end of the game as well is a little bit crowded at this point, and I think, you know, that needs to settle down a little bit. Let's take the fighters that we have and kind of flesh them out a little bit more. I'm hoping that this is going to be something a little different and something a little unique. If it's a fighter, I hope it is something really different, something really new. All right, Alan Crowe, I'm really curious to see what ships they will release for 3.0. They have released, most of the ships that were originally scheduled way back when. Yeah, I think the only holdouts from the original schedule, or from the very early ships, would probably be the Banu Merchantman, and the Idris, obviously, and the Javelin. Well, yeah, I'd say more the Idris. The Javelin, you know, it was more of a word for a long time, I think, than it was before it was actually a ship. But yeah, I think, if I remember correctly, what is up for 3.0 is the Prospector, the Dragonfly, obviously the Cutlass Black. Now, if it gets held back further, possibly the alternates of the Cutlass, which should be in development now, technically, I believe at this point the black should be pretty much all sewn up and done, and they should be moving on to the variants at this point, which would be the blue and the red. So if there's a big delay in 3.0, obviously we, you know, not hoping for it, but if there is, then possibly some other things could get squeezed in as well. But we'll have to wait and see what what comes up. But I think really the only locks are the Dragonfly, the Prospector, and the Cutlass. And yeah, the Nubifier responds to you and says pretty much the same thing. So yeah, I think that's pretty much baseline what you can expect. All right, Precision 007. Truck stops for the Hull series. I'll put money on it. Yeah, that was one thing that they showed in the video was the like the space truck stops. They showed a little bit of that, and so I think that's where you're talking about where I'm wondering about cargo transfer from the larger Hull series ships. Probably that is going to be how that is all going to work. Hopefully they'll get bigger. Maybe there's going to be like large kind of like arrays on the outside of them that just kind of catch and store those cargo containers as they're being transited around, kind of like a big shipping yard in present day with the those rail ready cargo containers that can kind of be lowered onto a ship and then dropped onto a semi and then dropped onto a rail car. So chances are that is how that is going to work out. All right, Radial Drift. I am sure the Eclipse will be a good ship, but why do we need yet another fighter when there are already over 20 fighters in the game? I hope it's not going to be, like, strictly speaking, a fighter. I hope there's going to be another dimension to it beyond just, like, fighter. Because I agree that I think we have more than enough fighters in the game as it is, and one of my secret fears is that at some point we're going to have to revisit pretty much all the fighters in this game as the game kind of develops and matures. I've discussed that before, but I think that there is other people have talked about this, but I think the problems with interactive mode and relative mode in terms of flight controls being, the lack of fine weapon control that you have on a joystick versus someone who flies with the mouse and keyboard. I think that that is going to impact fighters in the future once ships start costing money, and once we really start to become really aware of those expenses more than the triviality that they are now. That people are going to start to look at the fighters and start to say, there are some deficiencies here. And I think, I try to be positive, but I think there are inherent deficiencies in the way that the fighters are being designed. And I don't just mean like, okay, this is supposed to be balanced against that, so it has that many guns versus this having those many guns. I think that the basic fighter design model in the game is inherently flawed. And that is going to be an issue that is going to boil over at some point in the future. And so the more fighters we have, it's just the more work that's going to have to be redone in the future. Whereas, the larger ships, I think largely have been a success all around. I mean, there are strengths, there are weaknesses, but they are looking really, really good. At the same time, the fighters, I think, rely too heavily on the designs of the 80s and that were based off of a rather unsophisticated perspective of game balance. And I think that's going to be a problem that's going to come to a head at a later date. That's one of my secret fears in regards to Star Citizen. That's one of the things that kind of nags at me. Jose A. Ramos. The ribbing on the Hull C skin looks awesome. Well, it is ribbed for your pleasure. Alright, Commander Hawk 22. If it turns out to be as sexy as the Saber, I'll probably pick up 4 to match the 4 Sabers. So one Idris will have Sabers, the other, and one will have Eclipses. I guess you are running your own personal PMC. An interesting way to play the game. Definitely, if you've got the disposable income and you're all in like that, I would advise against using NPCs for that. I would go out and I would, try to source as many trustworthy pilots and set yourself up as your own PMC in PU. But I mean, if that's your thing, then that's your money to spend, dude. More power to you. I would just honestly, my one piece of advice would be, please don't, you know, populate all those wonderful assets with just NPC pilots and crew. Get real people. Share that with friends, man. All right, the Canadian Will. Minion, your videos are so damn good, and I think you are a cool, real person. And not some blind fanboy. Please don't attack me in SC when the PU is live, because I never want to have to kill someone I like as much as you. LOL. Implied threat. That's the thing with PvP. In most games, you know, PvP, you know, use World of Warcraft as an example. Someone kills you in a battleground, you res at the graveyard, you come back, you do your thing. No big deal, no harm, no foul, really. But in a game like Star Citizen, where it can involve the loss of real assets, or, you know, certainly, you know, wiping out hours and hours of work just because someone is having fun for to lulz, it's generally not always a good idea to do things like that. And you have to kind of take the long view on things, and you have to wonder about what's going to be profitable over the long term. I mean, is it going to be profitable to harass players and generally get harassed in return? Or would it be more profitable to perhaps, say, strip NPC convoys left, right, and center while driving up commodity prices for regular players who are hauling cargo through that area, who in turn turn a blind eye to your hijinks and possibly don't report you to the UEE because they're profiting from you as well, and possibly turning up at a little space station that some unnamed subsidiary of yours owns, that is selling cargo and spare hauler components to them at a discount. There's something to be said for a symbiotic relationship like that. Will it actually work out in the PU? If it's profitable and it's expedient for both parties, probably. Water, you know, players like water generally tend to take the easiest course. So, I mean, I could see that. I mean, will there be rampant random PvP? Of course, but I think the people who are in it for the long haul, the people who are in it for the long term, are going to have an eye on not stirring up too much trouble, and at the same time, you know, kind of having an eye on your pocketbook as a pirate as well, just because being a pirate is still about profit. And if you're just pissing off everybody where you are, that's generally not the ticket to a long and profitable life. Just my 2 cents. All right, next, Frank Verbach. I'm going to say Werbach. Sorry if I mispronounce it. Hull A and Hull B will be landable with cargo. Yeah, I do remember them saying something about the little ones. Hull C and up, not, except for water planets, was hinted at earlier, but we cannot be sure of that. Yeah, I could see Hull A's and Hull B's being used as a kind of like to transit cargo from orbit down to planet side, and then Hull C's and bigger being used as the large mass cargo transports. That would kind of make a lot of sense, I think, logically, as a logistical system for distribution of cargo and goods. Kind of like the way, you know, a big ocean liner with cargo containers on it would, you know, sail up to a port, and then the cranes pull all the cargo containers off and then put them down onto tractor trailers that distribute them to their destinations or onto trains. So yeah, I think that is going to be more or less the shape of things in the future. Okay, next comment is dumb comment. Every ships in Star Citizen is ugly and I love it. Okay. Okay. Enrique Diaz. Good info as always. Can you tell me which is the name of the song in the outro? Okay, that song is actually free, and if you've already got a YouTube or a Google account, so you actually have access to that song. If you go into like my channel, there's options under like, what is it, video library, where you can see like, one sec, let me go and look at it real quick and then I'll tell you. All right. So you open up the Creator Studio. So when you go to your channel, you click on Video Manager, and you'll see Creator Studio down the left-hand side of your screen. Go down to the tab that says Create and click on Audio Library, and there is a whole list of music tracks that YouTube lets you use for free and that have no license or cost requirement to using them in your videos. Some of them do require attribution, however, and you have to put them in the signature, but generally I stick to the ones that require none of that, so I don't have to add yet another hoop to jump through when I'm making the videos. But if you open up Audio Library, the track you're looking for is called Rooftops, Rooftops, and you just search that in there and you'll find it, and it's a free track. You can download it for free now and just put that on your MP3 player if you like it, or use that in your own videos. And yeah, and it's for free from Google, so enjoy. All right, next one. Aaron tweeted, Ben said it's coming. It's supposed to be in the middle or the 300i, or I guess you meant of the 300i and the 890 jump. And then right underneath it, Tom N says, with the name 600i, do you think they'll mimic the rest of the 300 series? I think both these are referring to the same ship, the 600i. I hope so. I'm interested in seeing what the 600p will look like. I'll gladly upgrade my Taurus for it if they do. I kind of feel like it's going to be bigger than a fighter, just because there are so many fighters. As noted before, earlier in the episode, there are just so many that I don't really think there's need for another. Maybe something along the Vanguard Redeemer size would probably be more appropriate. All right, let's see. Next question. MadMike. I wish they'd bring some capable yet affordable fighters. As nice as the Eclipse might be, I'm not going to fork over $150 or even more for just a fairly small fighter. I think it's going to be probably a lot bigger. I think you're probably looking at Redeemer Vanguard sized. Just FYI. I just don't get why we can't have something like the originally promised Hurricane, one seat, no bells and whistles, $100 heavy fighter. I know we got the Gladius, but I'm not a fan of light fighters, and the Cutlass, for now at least, wants a second pilot, not to mention that its speeds etc. have dropped to freelancer etc. levels, which is sort of puts it out of the heavy fighter definition and more into a versatile small jump point ship thingy for me. That said, I love flying wing designs. This is going to be pricey. This is going to be up there. I don't think they'll ever do that, honestly. I think CIG kind of painted themselves into a funding corner a long time ago, charging too much for ships, arguably. I think had the ships been priced more aggressively, and realistically there was no reason not to in the beginning. I think they overpriced it because just they misinterpreted, because I think that honestly, had they cut the prices down a little bit on a lot of the ships, and probably more than a little bit, they would have earned a lot more in terms of funding a lot faster, and probably still be earning more now than they were back then, and certainly than they are now. I think, unfortunately, though, they've really painted themselves into a corner with this, and those prices of those ships is what keeps a lot of people just kind of sitting on the sidelines and saying, that would otherwise, go in with a little bit more money if they were a little bit more aggressive with their pricing. So I don't really think they're going to do that. They've painted themselves into a corner, and there's a lot of existing people who would be really, really pissed if they built something, say, as good as a Vanguard or as good as a Redeemer that was priced like a Gladius. Like, the nerd rage would be epic, and it would be real. All right, Devin Sharkey, why would high-end top-secret military-grade ships be available for general sale? I thought we would get civilian versions of such ships. P.S. I want my Redeemer. Yeah, that's a kind of a question in the background here. So what is going on with the Redeemer? I really would love to sit in a room with someone from CIG and press that point until it hurts and get an answer on what the hell is going on with the Redeemer. Why is it just kind of like the ship that sells but doesn't exist type thing? I think why the real world reason, money. The in lore reason, it's the mobilization, UEE mobilization war bond initiative type thing, helping supply militias to defend against the Vandal hordes and all that other nonsense. That's kind of what it is. Metallic mouse. Yeah, because like a car sale, you have to make that pussy wet before you can take it. Okay. I need a little bit more context there. Yeah, but I get you. They're teasing people before they sell it. Hopefully it lives up to lives up to the tease. I would like to see something cool. I would like to see something interesting, and hopefully something that really kind of, when you look at it, you go, inherently this is all right, that this is all correct, and it's not just something that has a lot of good features but has an inherent flaw in it. And finally, PC3PO. Well done, sir. Cloaking technology seems a little disappointing considering this is 900 years in the future. Almost looks like they just threw a big sheet over the entire ship. Yes, indeed. That is disappointing cloaking technology indeed. Not quite up to Klingon standards, sadly. Though, I would like to see a bird of prey. I wonder if that would ever be a thing. Like, if Star Citizen really does set the pattern for the future for space games and really does succeed and really knock it out of the park. I mean, imagine what this could mean for like a Star Wars type universe experience like this, or even a Star Trek one with multi-crew ships. This could be like, this could be a real transitional moment in gaming where, the accountants don't make the decisions, the players and the designers do, which is as it should be. Anyways, that's the show for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Quantum travel initiated.